There we go. How are y'all doing? We're hanging in there, all right? Hey, we just got back, actually Friday, from a trip. This whole series, Missio, has been about taking the next step and God sending us. And so we got back from Tennessee. We had about 85 altogether between Mount Carmel and us, and had a great time, great trip, and a lot of people, just families that are just forever grateful for the work that was done. Next week, we'll probably have a video kind of highlighting some of the things that we did. But today, I'm really excited. We have Earl Homner, which every Sunday, your giving not only goes to help partner right here in this community and in the region, but also around the world. And so today, it's my honor to have Earl Homner from Central Brazil. And so, yeah, give it up for him. And so if everybody will move those fans a little faster, I can feel it up here. So we just want to have a time to kind of share a little bit about Central Brazil. I know some of the folks here at 3C have gone on trips, but it really is about, God calling us and what, kind of like what I said, if you feel God calling you to do something, and then what are you going to do about it? Earl has been with Central Brazil. He's going to give you a little bit of the background, but my first thought is, Earl, how did you know, and what was your thought? How did God kind of nudge you at first?
All right. I don't know how many of you know this, but Ruth Ann and I grew up in Georgetown, Ohio. We were in the first grade together and have been together ever since. In August, we will celebrate 66 years that we have been married. Thank you. And we just completed in July the 19th, 56 years in Brazil. So God has been good to us. So let's go back. We grew up in Brown County, and then I was preaching at Hagensport, going to Bible college. And while I was in Bible college for 3 years, I worked at Witchard's. How many of you remember me from Witchard's? You're that old. Oh. Yeah, I worked there and went to Bible college and preached all at the same time. And at that time, there were 6 of us, 3 couples, Ruth Ann and I from Georgetown, Lynn and Julie Cleveland from Mount Orb, and Wade and Carolyn Pope from Hamersville. And all 6 of us ended up as missionaries in Brazil. Interesting. And so Wade and Carolyn had gone. Lynn and Julie were there. Lynn had been the youth minister at Georgetown where we were going to church. And so one day Lynn sends a message. He says, Earl, you ought to come to Brazil and work with us. Well, we were preaching, having a good ministry. The church in Hagensport was growing, and we were happy. But we felt if God wanted us to go, we would go to Brazil. We had 3 little kids. You want to see them right there. This is our family. This is how it was when we went to Brazil. That's Angie on the left, Kimmy in the middle, and then Michael there on the other end. But it was hard then as a recruit to get to the mission field. And at that time, the Christian church was sending out a lot of missionaries. And there had been recruits for 4 or 5 years. That means you live in a car, you travel, you go church to church trying to raise your support, and it's difficult. So I decided, I said I would not put my family through that. We would not live in the car for 4 or 5 years and try to raise support. But if God wanted us to go to Brazil, we were ready to go. And so we made a deal with God. We said, okay, God, if you want to go to Brazil, here it is. You've got 2 years. And if we don't have the support we need in 2 years, that means we don't have the calling to go to Brazil. 18 months later, we were in language school in Brazil studying Portuguese. And I learned that God is serious about how we pray. It's just not, oh, God, if you want it to happen, it'll happen. No, you need to mark dates. You want something done, you want God to answer something, put it down in a journal and see where you start praying for that, and you will see that God will work. He doesn't want you to just, if it's God's will, it'll happen. You go 5 years go by and 10 years go by, nothing. So be serious about when you pray because God is interested. So we ended up going to Brazil. We never did work with Lynn and Julie, but we were there. Went to language school for a year, 6 hours a day, 5 days a week for 1 year. That's all we did was study Portuguese. And then we worked with another family, kind of an internship for our first furlough or our first term, and then we came back. And the church here, by the way, let me say this. You have supported us for over 55 years. Even before we went to Brazil, you were probably one of the churches that supported us because we raised all of our support right here. Georgetown, Hamersville, Bethel, Cincinnati Parkside Church, which was Mount Washington, whatever it was then, Hagensport, Ripley. All of our support came almost from right here. So let me say this while I'm thinking about it, because I don't want to forget it. Some of your life has been spent in Brazil. Whether you've been there or not, part of your life has been spent in Brazil. Because money is coined life. Money is coined life. You gave an offering today. You worked this week or the last couple of weeks, and you gave part of your life in the offering that you give to the church. Part of your life comes to the church turns around and gives part of your life to us. And so part of your life has been spent in Brazil. And I want you to know this. We could not do what we're doing and have done for 56 years without people like you that sacrifice. Not everybody is called to go, but everybody is called to be a part of the work that's being done. So I want you to know that we went. So there we are. That's how we went. Now the family continues to grow. The kids thought, we were getting old, you're getting old, you need to slow down. So we have slowed down some, and so the kids now have taken over the work. Michael is living in Manaus. He goes all the kids. Kim just came back from a trip. I think she went on 5 trips this year. I'll be going in September on one of the trips. Teddy is involved. He now works for IDES, International Disaster, and you are part of that work. So all the kids are involved in our work. We didn't go to Brazil to see if we would like it and then come back. If you do that, you're not going to like it. No matter where you go, what field you go to, if you go with that attitude, you're not going to like it. You're not going to stay very long. You're going to come back. Well, we have stayed. We're there. So one of the first churches we started, there we are on the left. That's when we left. We had never flown before. Back then, people didn't fly like they do today. That's our first trip on an airplane when we went from Cincinnati to New York to São Paulo, or to Rio, and then Rio to São Paulo. That's us there on the steps of the plane going. So we went to language school, then we worked with another couple, and then in March of 1974, we started the Novo Horizonte Church. This was a government housing project where in an area of 4 city blocks, there were going to be 15,000 people live. It was just house, next picture, house, wall, behind the little house, another wall, and another house behind that. That's the team that helped us when we started the church. March 10th, 1974, we started the church in this little house. We went to the subdivision. We didn't know anybody in the subdivision. You talk about how challenging, celebrate. You celebrate. How we celebrated. That's one of the questions on the sheet here. I'm a little head, so he's supposed to ask me questions, but I'm going to.
He just rolls, man. I'm like,
I can't get stuck. So, little house, like the whole house is no bigger than this area right here. You go in, there's a little living room, and then a little kitchen or a little bathroom you have to back into so you can go, and then a little kitchen with a little sink in the back, and then the other half was either 2 bedrooms or 3 bedrooms. So we bought one of those little house, bought the government house. That's how we started. We didn't know anybody, so we went house to house calling on people. We started showing on the outside of one of these houses film strips. Now, you probably you don't have any idea what a film strip is. But that's what we used then, a little projector, and we showed film strips on the house. But God showed us that we were doing what he wanted us to do because he led us to this family, Senor Antonio and Dona Raimunda. This is a couple that had known each other, and their mates died, and so they came together. And they had 28 kids. That's the kind of family you want when you start a church.
It's job security.
And they still had, olha aqui, that's Portuguese, olha aqui. Look here. They still had, when we met them, 14 kids still at home, and they lived in a house this big. Yeah. And in their bedrooms, it's just hooks for hammocks, different levels, and that's how they slept. But that's how we started. So in March the 10th, 1974, we started this little church. We started with the vision that God had given us to make disciples, make better disciples, you'll make more disciples. It's a multiplication of disciples. You're not interested in additions. You're not interested in transfers. You're interested in discipling people, just like the book of Acts teaches. And they multiplied. So make disciples, make better disciples, you're going to make more disciples. And as you make disciples and start churches, the preacher has to train somebody to be taking his job. So that's part of discipleship. Okay? So in 1979, we had a church growth conference in Brasilia. All the missionaries in Brazil with Donald McGavran. Donald McGavran was the founder of the church growth movement. Peter Wagner, they were there in Brazil, and we sat under those two men for a week. And I remember the first question Dr. McGavran asked. He said, "Where do you want to be 10 years from now?" Never thought about that. He said, "You need to set goals. You need to dream. You need to have a vision of what God might want to do with you." And so you begin to dream. And I remember that Novo Horizonte little church, we had about 120 members. And I said one night, "Close your eyes. And let's dream that we're a church of 500. They just laughed. They said, you're a dumb American. You don't know that we're not going to grow. We're poor and we'll never grow. Well, I want you to know that one church in March 1974 has now multiplied into 80 to 100 churches. And they continue to multiply.
Yeah.
When we celebrated 50 years in Brazil, we had seen 50,000 people come to Christ.
That's amazing.
And it continues to grow. We probably, with the churches and all that, we probably have at least 1,000 baptisms every year. They continue to multiply. And so God saw that we were growing. We were producing. Churches become self-supporting. They own their own property. They're on their own. So God probably said, "Hubner, what are you doing here? They don't need you here anymore. They're doing it on their own." So in October of 84, we had a month of missions. And we prayed and we fasted for a whole month. We had missionaries come in and talk. And we said, "God, we want to become a missionary church too." Because the Brazilian church had become a missionary church. Like, for example, we have Brazilian missionaries in the 5 Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa. You probably didn't even know there were 5 Portuguese-speaking countries in Africa. We have missionaries in all those countries. We have missionaries in China and India and all over. The Brazilian church became a missionary church. So we wanted our church to become a missionary church. So the month went by, and the beginning of the last week, I get a call from a guy that I had known before in Goiânia. He was single at the time. He's now married. He married an Argentina gal. They're living in Manaus. Now, Manaus is the capital of the state of Amazonas. It's part of Brazil. And he said, "Pastor Francisco," oh, by the way, that's my name in Brazil. If you come to Brazil, you don't call me Earl. They would say, "Oh!" And I didn't want people barking at me. So my middle name is Francis. That translates into Francisco. So I'm called Pastor Francisco. Okay, Ruth Ann is Ruth Ann, but her name in Portuguese, if you're married, you're a dona. So her name is Dona Huchi. Don't laugh at my wife. but that's her name in Portuguese. So if you come on the boat and you hear people talking about Pastor Francisco and Dona Ruti, we'll be here. Somebody else will be there, but you'll be there. So that's what happens. So where was I at now?
Well, I was just going to ask you, culturally, when you moved there, what were some of the big cultural things that you got to...
That's something I forgot.
That's all right.
We had grown up in Georgetown. We were probably lower middle class family. Ruth Ann had grown up on a farm. In fact, her parents owned the property where the Georgetown Brown County Hospital was built. That was where they had their farm. She grew up milking cows and on the farm. So we never had much here. And we lived in a house on 52 in Higginsport when we were ministering there, a rented house. So we never had much to give up when we went to Brazil. But we get to Brazil, we had to buy a whole house full of furniture. New furniture. We had never had new furniture. Washer and dryer. We never had a washer and dryer. A brand new Beetle Volkswagen Bug. And we had never had a new car. Here we are in Brazil, and I began to think, you're a big liar. People in the United States think that you're going to get eaten up by elephants and run over by elephants and eaten up by cannibals when we were having the best we'd ever had it. So I counseled with another missionary. I said, I feel bad. I'm going to go back because I can't lie to these people. He said, no. He said, you stay here because God is just rewarding you for the faith that you've put in him. So we stayed, and we've been there ever since. So this guy calls me, and he says, Pastor Francisco, he said, I'm living in Manaus. I'm married in Argentina. We're going to Argentina. I have about 15 people in this little church. I talked to them. They want you to come and take over. This was in October. I said, well, give us to the end of the year, and we'll see if we can raise enough funds to send one of our preachers to Manaus. Well, when the end of the year came, it wasn't who was going to Manaus. It was which of three couples. So we ended up sending Pastor Geraldo and his wife and three little kids, just like we were when we went to Brazil. January 25th, 1995, I flew to Manaus with them. Well, I knew nothing about Manaus, really. I knew Manaus was in the jungle of the Amazon, which is really when you think about the jungle. But Manaus is a city of 2 million people. It's not jungle there. But the only thing I knew about Manaus was on one of the trips back to the United States, we would fly from Brasilia to Manaus to Caracas to Miami. That's how we would get back and forth to the United States. So on one of these flights, it was 6 o'clock in the morning. We had landed in Manaus. And people were getting on and off the plane. And I thought, well, I'll just step off the back of the plane and get some fresh air. Well, 6 o'clock in the morning in Manaus, it's already 100 degrees. And the humidity is already 150 if it gets that high, whatever it was.
See, it's not that bad
in
here.
I stepped off the plane,
all right?
stepped off the back of the plane there, and I thought to myself, who in the world would ever want to live or work here? Well, let me tell you, never let God even know you think things like that, because God may have a different plan for you. Well, we ended up starting a church, taking over this little church in Manaus. Well, the church grew, and a big story in how we got property there, and the church grew and built and started 3 or 4 other churches, and then started the church downriver in Urucará. And so when you travel in the Amazon, you travel by ferry boat. There are no roads, hardly any roads in the Amazon. The Amazon River has 1,100 rivers that are tributaries. So you travel by boat. You travel on a ferry boat back and forth. Wherever you come to Manaus, you go back to where you live. You go to Manaus, go to shop, and you go back. Okay? That's how you travel. So we started a church in Urucará. And so through that, you know the guy that runs the ferry boat who lived in Urucará, and our preacher now living in Urucará. And so he's going back and forth. Well, Pastor Geraldo one day, he says, Earl, he said, if we're going to have a good work in Brazil, we need a boat in the Amazon. I said, okay, who knows? Maybe God wants us to have a boat. So in October of 98, Pastor Gerald and I went around Manaus and we calculated what's it going to cost to build a boat or buy a used boat to work here to help these people that live along the tributaries of the Amazon. Well, it's going to be about $50,000. So we came back to the States in December of 98, and the trustees at our meeting, they came up with about $15,000. But they gave me permission now, on furlough of 99, going church to church, to raise funds for this boat project in the Amazon, okay? So when you're on furlough, you go every week, church to church, visiting, reporting to churches that support you. So this is 99, so we're going church. So we're in Mandarin Christian Church in Jacksonville, Florida. Dennis Bratton was a preacher there. By the way, some of you that are really up there in age, you might remember Dennis was the youth minister and music minister here back in the early 60s. Now, most of you you've never been that far back. But he was. Dennis and I had gone to school together, and his dad had been an elder in the church that first sent us to Brazil. And so wherever Dennis preached, those churches were part of our ministry. So now we're at Mandarin Christian Church. When we first went there, probably 175 people. They were on a horse farm when the church started. Well, now it's 2000 or 1999, not 1975, and they're in a building program, $14 million building program for the Mandarin Christian Church. Well, I was there to raise money for missions. And they had a $100,000 mortgage every month to pay on their loan. Well, I didn't want to cause problems in the church. So I decided I'm not going to talk about money. So in my sermon, and they were, at that time, they had 4 services and had 800 people in 4 times. They ran over 3,000 in attendance. $14 million building program. But in my sermon, I talked about having a vision to have a boat. That's all I said. We'd like to work in the Amazon. God has given us a dream to have a boat to work in the Amazon. Well, in between one of these services, this gentleman walks up to me. I just stood up there in the front, 800 people in and out. And he comes up here. He said, I just heard you preach, and you're talking about a vision to have a boat. Now, my wife and I help with mission projects, and we go half on a project. He said, how much is that boat going to cost? I said, $50,000. He said, Barbara, come here. He called his wife over. He said, you just heard the guy preach. They need a boat in the Amazon. They need $50,000. Don't you think we could give 25? And I put my arm around him. I said, I'm sure you could. No, I didn't. I said, no. I said, now, listen to this. This guy is not a member of the church there. He just happens to be visiting the day that we are there. See how God works? That's how God works. Just happened to be there that day. So I told him, it scared me. I said, no. I said, you better talk to Dennis, because I'm not here to cause problems in the church, none of that. Well, I didn't know he wasn't a member of the church. See, I didn't know that when he said that. So 3 weeks later, we get a check for $25,000 from Bill Crawford. Well, I want to jump from March of 99 to March, say, of 2013, when we have coming to work in little hospitals that we work in the Amazon, surgeons from Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. That's awesome. Because when Bill Crawford goes to the doctor at Mayo Clinic, he talks about the boat in the Amazon. And I remember when he first started out, I said, Bill, you're crazy. I said, we'll never have surgeons from Mayo Clinic come here. He said, you'll see. So we did. And they have come. They haven't been back since COVID, but they were scheduled to come this year, but it didn't work out. But they come and they do surgeries, all because of Bill. So now we have almost the funds we need to build the boat. So I called Pastor Geraldo. I said, Pastor Geraldo, I really got to know, what's it going to cost to build this boat? He said, well, about $70,000. He said, but you remember Senor Valdo, who showed us a boat. He said, at the time in October before, He had wanted 120,000 reais, which was $100,000 for the boat. Well, I just forgot about it. I just put the picture of the boat in my agenda, and we came back to the States. Well, now Pastor Giles says, you remember Senor Adevaldo, the guy who showed you your boat that day? He's come down on his price. And he's come down from 120,000 to 70,000. Hey, ice. You know. Now, listen to this. From October of 98, when we first were talking about the boat, to May of 99, guess what happened? The dollar went up in the exchange rate. The boat that was $110,000 in October, now 6 months later, is $40,000. Same boat. So I called one of the trustees. I said, Alden, what are we going to do? He said, let's go see the boat. So we took a week off, flew to Manaus, got on the boat, saw that we could remodel it, and do the. And I remember sitting in Senor Adevaldo's office and paying him $40,000 for this boat right here that you're looking at. But at the same time, you know, when you see God work, you know God's not done. The church we had in Urucará, our preacher, we were renting a house. That Senor Adevaldo was the owner of the house. We were paying rent every month for the preacher to live in this house. So I said, Senor Adevaldo, you know, we're gonna be able to help people now with the boat and all this. But I said, we're paying rent for Pastor Ivan. Why don't you give us the house too? He said, okay. Don't worry about paying rent anymore. You can have the house too. That's how God works. And so in March of 2000, we did the first trip on this boat. And we saw kids. Were you ever on this boat? You were on, yeah. Oh, yeah, you were on it. I remember that. Carol was on it. Yeah, they've been on that. How many of you have been on this boat? This was the first boat, yeah. This was the first boat. And that was a real mission trip then. We didn't realize that it was till we got the new boat. See, the new boat is, people think they're on a cruise, but they're really not. But compared to this boat, when we started, we saw little kids, 2 and 3 years old, never seen a bar of soap. They ate toothpaste. They didn't know what toothpaste was. They just jump in the river and get out. They were full of worms. They'd have worms coming out their neck, under their arms, just full of worms. So our main, and it has been ever since, our main medicine is a dewormer. Everybody that comes on the boat, whether it's been 6 months or not, they get a dewormer and they get 60 vitamins. And that's been the main part of our ministry. Every trip, we will distribute 35 to 40,000 vitamins, adult and children's. Everybody that comes on the boat gets 60 vitamins. Over-the-counter medicine, that's how you can help us. Everybody that goes on a trip, they take 2 50-pound bags of over-the-counter meds that we will let you know what you need. We will distribute on every trip $8,000 to $10,000 worth of over-the-counter medicine to those people. Now listen to this. I want you to listen. When you get sick, you go to the drugstore. When they get sick, if we've been there, they get to go once a year to the drugstore. They don't get up and get in their boat and go to the drugstore. You think about that. Maybe once or twice a year, they get to come on the boat and go to the drugstore. And that's it.
Now, Earl,
so you can see.
You talk about the medical boat. You talk about a trip like this. Is this only for people that are in the medical field, or what's a general week look like if someone wanted to get involved?
Okay, we have different things that you do. By the way, this is the second service. We don't have a time, do we?
No.
Oh,
that's
great. Okay, here we go. Okay, I'm going to show you. You come. You're not a medical person, okay? So in the front of the boat, you're going to control traffic. So you have to be somebody that's kind of mean. Okay, stand up. Here. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Okay. So you have to learn. You're going to control traffic. People that come off the boat. They're off the boat. They get their file card, and then they come on the boat. Okay. So you're going to call them. They're up in the grass. They're waiting for the next. So you say, Prossimo Magico. Let's hear it.
Rusty Omanchiko.
Yeah, you did it. Sign him up, Sherry. He can do that job.
And-
Prossimo Dentista.
Rusty Omatista.
Dentista.
Dentista.
Next, what'd you see? Next to see the doctor, next to see the dentist. That's all you have to do. And keep the little kids off the boat because they'll get on the boat. They'll make a big mess. So
By the way, if you need a pilot, he's your guy too. By the way. So yeah, right now.
So you don't have to be a medical, but there's plenty to do. You can give out glasses, you can weigh and measure, take blood pressure, pass out gift packets, give them the worm medicine. All you got to do is tell them, abre a boca, open your mouth and mastica, chew it. So you have to put it in your mouth first and chew it out. No, you don't. Then give them a dewormer. You know, that's how you do it. So you don't have to be a medical person. No. Okay, let's.
Where do you see the next step of the mission for?
Okay, let's
Central
look at
Brazil?
the new boat.
Yep.
There we are.
That's nice.
And that was a big project there. That was a project more than I really thought we could handle. But I didn't want to try to build a new boat until I knew that what we were doing was getting results. So right now in Manaus, we have 50 of our Amazon missionaries and their families, their couples, in Manaus at a seminar training program this weekend. Because people from even Goiânia, where we live, cannot hack it in Manaus. You have to get the people that are there in their culture, and so they're being trained. Well, we have 4 seminars, 3 days a week during the year to train our Amazon missionaries. So they're taking over the work. The boat continues to make contact with new villages through the medical part, and then our missionaries go there and start churches, small groups in the villages. But just for you to think about this. In our work, in the 25 years that we've been in the Amazon, we have visited probably 100 villages, let's say. Okay? Just in the state of Amazonas, and that's only half of the rainforest, just in the state of Amazonas, there are 30,000 villages. And the only way to reach them is by water. So you can see the ministry of the boat. Now, there are times when the river goes down, like the Amazon goes up for 6 months. Right now, it's high. It'll start going down. It'll go down real low by the end of November, where we can't do trips until February because the river's low and the boat can't get into these places. But there are places we need to reach where there are unreached people that have never heard the gospel, never seen the boat. So we need this project. This is our project right now. We are raising funds for this plane. And just to let you know about the plane, we just paid for one of the floats. You know, that's a float. If you know anything about a plane, has 2 floats. One float was $35,000. And we can't have just one float, so we need another. So that's our project now. Michael, our son that's there, he has pilot's license now. All he needs now is a 3-day course on how to land on the water, which is not a big deal if you know how to fly, I guess.
Tom, is that true? Yeah.
But that's our project. Right now, we'll continue with the boat. We are scheduling trips now for 29. We are booked up between February and October until 29, and I think 3 or 4 months are already scheduled in 29. But if you have if you're interested in Sherry going, Carol, you can talk to them. There are trips when we need 4 or 5 people to complete a trip. So you can go. You don't have to meet a medical part. All you need is a passport, and now you can get a visa, a simple visa to go. That's all you need.
Go
ahead.
I was just going to say, I really want to go and want my wife to go, but can you assure her there's no snakes in the Amazon?
No snakes. Once in a while we see an anaconda, but
Yeah,
very seldom.
he says they won't hurt you, though.
Very seldom.
So.
What they're afraid of are jaguars, because where we work, most of our trips with the boat, there are a lot of capivara, which is the world's largest rodent, a lot of paca, a lot of small deer, a lot of tapir, which attracts the jaguars. And so the people that live in these villages, they keep their eye on the jaguar. And then when they get in the water, you have to watch the stingrays, freshwater stingrays. Because if you step on one, and if you're on the boat and somebody stepped on one and they're coming in, they're screaming in pain. In fact, I'll share this. Maybe I shouldn't, but I will. They say, and you don't want to step on one, that if you step on a stingray, the first thing you do before you even know you've done it is fill your pants. I mean, it hurts that much. And then if you've really got it in the back of your leg, you have to pull it out. You're going to be sick for a couple years. The poison will be in there for a couple years. So you want to watch. So when you come and get in the water, and you'll get in the water, the piranhas won't bite you. They won't, I promise.
We're really selling this thing today, aren't we?
You
Yeah.
scoot like this. You
That's
don't
over-
step. Because you don't want to step on a stingray. You scoot and they'll run. See? Don't worry, you won't.
No worries.
Two things that people can't get over when they come on a trip. There are very few bugs. You have more bugs here in July and August than you'll ever see on the Amazon. And then the piranhas don't eat you. The piranhas don't eat you. You can fish off the back of the boat and catch a piranha, then you can jump right in, and they won't bother you. You're still a whole, aren't you? You're there. You've been there. All of you ladies have been there, and you're back home. Okay.
So, and that was what I was just going to say. I know that you said you're scheduling till 2029, but if there's a smaller team, you can get involved that way.
Get them in. So get a passport, and then a visa you can get within a month after you decide what month you're going.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be a medical person. There's plenty to do on a trip.
Earl, it has been truly a blessing. I know, as I said, I can remember way back at Vacation Bible School, his family being here. And so far back that it was a long time for me. And
Not that far.
Not
Just
that far.
Down.
53 years. No, it's 47 years ago. But I do remember them talking about their heart and their passion, and just that overflows from him, as you can see. So we're so thankful for 56 years of ministry, and we pray, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to pray that this ministry continues to flourish, and churches are planted throughout.
Then let me say, I just finished a book last year on dreaming big in Brazil, and it's available. I'll be out here in the hallway to stand, and it tells about how we started at Witchard's and went all the way through till
And there's
last year.
And there's a little bit about Sherry, right?
Yeah, there is a story in there about Sherry, and Sherry gave me permission to write, and you'll want to read it.
Yeah.
Sherry's life was changed. In fact, I'll tell this: if you go on a trip, your life is going to be changed.
For sure.
You'll never be the same. You'll never be the same
For sure.
going on a trip. Thank you.
No doubt about it. Hey, let's pray. God, we are so grateful for Earl and the Homners, their entire family, and their passion, their heart, to be willing to leave the United States to fulfill a dream, a mission. And as we continue, and as they continue to do so, we just pray that we continue to partner with them for years to come. And that, Father, there's so much more that you are able to accomplish if we just trust in you. And Lord, I thank you for Earl reminding us that to set dates, to make a challenge, to dream big. And Father, I pray that as we go from this place, we are forever changed. And we ask in Jesus' name.